Tom and Alane Waters with Restoration International, and we're going to be talking to you today about single life and how we can have successful single lives.
You know, often we think that being single, there's something wrong with us, like we can't connect with somebody. But we need to see that single life can be a very important part of our lives that we can make the most of.
Today we're going to be talking about 4 areas of single life that are vitally important for us to be successful. Number 1 is building a relationship with God. Without that, we have a crumbling foundation.
You know, that relationship with God is so vitally important because for me, I know that when I tried to go into life and got older and got into my career, it was just me trying to navigate through life, and I needed the help of God, and I needed to have a relationship with Him that would help me to make decisions that were going to give me the most fulfillment in my life.
Ecclesiastes 12:1 says, "Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth." This is the time. In our youth is where we build this relationship with God. Also in Matthew 6:33, it says that we need to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all of these other things essential to life will be added unto us.
So having that opportunity to connect with God on a daily basis is so vital to having wisdom to make those important decisions in life, especially before we go into relationships. So we're looking at this in the context of building the most of our single life and enjoying every minute of it and making the most of it.
So what does that really look like when we're talking about taking time for God at the beginning of the day? This literally means that God and our relationship to Him needs to be so important that it is the first part of every day. We don't leave it for some time later in the day where we might think it's more convenient, but to actually start there at the beginning of the day, seeking Him, surrendering our lives, recognizing that without Him we can do nothing.
And in that process of connecting with God, it's also very important that we look at what God wants us to be. Because if we are preparing for our future life and in relationships, we want to know that when we go into those relationships, we go into them in a pure way. And the Bible talks about, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
Yeah, so that's Matthew 5:8, and really that's the point of blessing that we need. Because if we're willing to let God deal with our moral purity in a culture that says anything goes, you can have sex on the first date, we can't live in, that's not God's culture. That is man's culture, and we need to turn away from that.
Because if we follow the culture that we're in, we will find the emptiness that culture brings. There's no security in those kind of relationships, and it goes from one to the other. And often it is the woman who feels much more let down and scarred through those kind of relationships than if we will hold to the moral purity, knowing that in time we will have the experience that God desires us to have as a couple.
So we want to just say for a moment here, recapping this first point, if you don't find yourself in a secure relationship with God where you're willing to allow Him to work in you, His will, then we want to encourage you, this is the time to build that. Every other relationship that we have will be built off of that successfully.
And I know for me, this was so important because as I started to mature in my life and getting direction for my education and my future, it was knowing that God was leading and I could have confidence stepping forward, doing things that maybe I wasn't so comfortable with, knowing that He was leading and guiding in that, and He would take me through those things.
So the second area that we want to talk about is don't wait till later in life to master the skills of basic life. We need to really be prepared to do all the aspects of real home life right at the beginning of life.
That's right, because it's so interesting that as we have counseled hundreds of couples, that in the relationships, once they're married, the husband will say something like this to us, "Man, my wife doesn't even know how to cook a meal. She doesn't know how to do the laundry." I mean, it is so frustrating to live in this total mess, this chaos all the time. And if we can see the blessing of taking this time in our single life, that we master these skills at home, because life will roll on. And if we can master those things without having the pressure of doing it into a relationship, it's so much easier.
I've asked many of those young men, so you're just finding out in married life that your wife now doesn't know how to cook or take care of a home? And these guys said, well, yeah, I mean, we just went out on dates. We went to restaurants. We did fun things. So I said, you never really experienced living real life together before you were married. You didn't go to her home and interact and watch how she took care of things. You just did the sort of dating thing where you're out there and you're not really getting to know the real person.
It is such a blessing to have those skills ahead of time. Just even being single, knowing that you know how to manage your own home, to take care of things, to make healthy food, to have friends over and know that you don't have to feel stressed because, the bathroom doesn't look right or the bedroom, you have to shut doors because things are in a mess in the other rooms. So it gives us total freedom when we do that. And I was so thankful that I was taught that as a child. And this is something we instilled in our young people. We have 3 children. They're all adults now. But in their growing up years, we help them to see the importance of mastering those skills at home.
That's right. There's a Bible principle in Colossians 3:23. It says, whatsoever you do, do it heartily unto the Lord. And this principle is a very important principle because for our son, for example, so here he is, he's a boy, he's got 2 sisters. Do you think he likes the idea of ironing? Well, he actually did fine with it because in our home, we did all the duties that were real to life. That includes cleaning toilets. Everybody rotated through that on a weekly basis, and that included preparing meals, that included doing outside things, working with the cars and with the lawn mowing, every aspect.
Yeah, even home maintenance was something we did, and we taught our children together to do and to enjoy. And I can remember when our son was young, he couldn't wait to iron. I mean, this was something he was just growing into because his older sister's ironing, and now he wanted to do it so bad. But as he got older, he decided, oh, this isn't so much fun, standing in front of an ironing board and pressing shirts and pants and things like that. But I tell you, when he went to flight school because he wanted to be a pilot, the first thing they required of all of their students was to iron their uniforms. They had to be sharp and pressed every single day when they walked through that door. And there's a reason for that because it maintains a professional appearance rather than this sloppy look. And so when he did that, he told us later, I was so thankful, Mother, that you taught me to iron.
That's right.
And I could do that. That was not a stressor for me.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, there aren't a lot of young men nowadays that are good with running an iron. We can all run our smart devices. We can run those things and spend a lot of time there. But he was so thankful because when he got there, the young man that he ended up rooming with and sharing accommodations had not had that experience. And so Josiah ended up ironing his uniform for a couple of days, and then he said, this has got to end. I'm going to teach you how to iron, and you need to iron your own uniforms from now on.
So every part of the life we need to be skilled at. We need to master those basics. And there is an interesting study that was done that people who make their bed every day are happier than people who don't. And it's amazing because it seems like such a little thing, but even in the context of maintaining our daily lives, it can bring us joy and contentment. And when we have joy and contentment, then we're more effective in whatever direction God leads us.
It's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a pretty high-level manager in a big corporation, and he was working with a young man, an employee there that had been in the company, and the young man was kind of dropping off, and so at his evaluation, he was given the opportunity, basically you have one more chance to really make a difference here. And so my friend, as he shared this story, he said, I'd like you to go home, and I'd like to give you a couple of days to think about what you're going to do and what needs to change in your life. And of course, the manager was just expecting that he's going to deal with work. But the interesting thing was that the guy came back with pages of stuff that he was going to do, not only at the place of employment to change the direction of his behavior and his conduct and his ability to perform the duties, but he told my friend, he said, I'm going to start making my bed. I'm going to keep my apartment tidy. I'm going to start. And my friend was a little bit taken back, but really it makes sense, because if you want to be successful anywhere else out there in life, in any other relationship, including the workplace, you need to learn to be successful right where life happens first, and that is in your own home, your own closet, your own bathroom, your own kitchen, and that's where it really begins.
And what was so amazing about that is he said that the guy's performance just escalated. I mean, it was so much better, and it was because he had done so much at home, and he started coming into work and saying, this is what I did at home, and that set the stage for how he performed at work. So as we are in the little things of life, we will be in the bigger things of life as well. Another area that we really need to focus on in our single life, in this area of mastering the skills and the basics areas, is that of money management. This is an area that many people get very caught up into, where they don't manage the money, and then they find out they're in a big problem.
A big problem. Yeah, money management is, in terms of marriage, and it affects other relationships too, but in terms of marriage, it is the number 2 thing that ends up driving people to separation and divorce. Of course, the first is the breakdown in communication. If we can't communicate about things, we're in big trouble, and we're not going to do well in any part of life. But money management is so important. There's a principle in Luke 16:2 that says, give an account of your management, or of your stewardship, or in this case of your finances, being willing to take yourself to task and make an accountability for where your money's going. And if you look after the pennies, the dollars will begin to look after themselves, but many times that's not happening.
Yeah, so because we don't take an account of our resources, and if we have a job and we just want to get this or get that because we like it, or we're interested in it, or we have this impulse to do it, if we have cash on us, we can spend it. If we have a credit card, we can pull that piece of plastic out, and then it's at the end of the month when we get this statement, it's like, oh, I can't believe, how did I ever rack up that much? I had no idea. So it's looking every day to think about and plan ahead how we're going to manage our money, and look at the resources that we have, and then look at what are the known bills that we know we have, our housing, our basic expenses, and make sure those are covered in your management, in your budget, and then you can start adding those fun things in.
Yeah, and it's really not that complicated. If you just look at what comes in and what's going to have to go out, the known things that go out. And for us, our tithe and offering, because that's part of that fundamental relationship with God, is that we are going to give Him the first and the best of what we have financially. So you put down the things that you know you have to spend every month. It's not complicated. The hardest part of all this for any of us in our humanity and in our self-centeredness is that we don't like to be accountable. You mean I have to really put down that I'm buying these little things that my wife doesn't know I'm buying? Yes, that's part of the discipline. And if we will do this kind of simple management of finances, we can not only get through our month with money left over, but we can actually begin saving money, which is a very important part that many people are not doing today.
Especially as a single person. I know for me, I had this idea of a budget. I learned that from my home, and it was very important. I knew what I would be having coming in my nursing profession, and I knew what my expenses were going to be. And part of what I did each month is set aside a little bit just for a savings, just for those unexpected things that would come up. And if we begin to do this in our single life, it will help to prepare us for success in our future life as well, if we are in a marriage relationship. And when I did that, it was amazing that I had resources when things would go wrong. I had the funds to be able to take care of those unexpected expenses. So we can live, we have this attitude, well, I need to treat myself. I deserve this. I've earned this. I've worked hard for this. And those are all true statements. But we have to make sure that the groundwork is covered.
That's right. And so this is not something that needs to be hard or arduous. This is something that really will benefit every relationship that we have in life and give us a freedom. We sometimes say, I want freedom. I want to do what I want to do. I want to spend the way I want to spend. I don't want people to make me accountable. All of that sounds kind of good, but it's all really an illusion, and it's not good at all. What we really want to have is the experience that we are accountable, which gives us the highest freedom, the most flexibility, the opportunity to do something special with or for someone else, and we don't have to be in a crisis or in a panic when something goes wrong and we need to replace something on our car or something breaks at home, and now what are we going to do? Oh, I got to put it on a credit card. It doesn't need to be that way.
That's right. And another aspect of our single life that is so important is to have a vision for your future, have goals, get your education, know what you want to do, and set goals to accomplish that. What profession do you want to be? I know as a little girl, I always wanted to be a nurse, and that stood in my mind for a long time, all through my educational processes. As I got older, I thought, I not only want to be a nurse, but I would like to do mission service, at least for a while, to get the feel, to be able to serve others in countries that don't have the opportunities and blessings and resources that we have. And so I began to put that in the picture of my future, to look for my education and head for that target.
Yeah, and you actually were able to follow that through.
I did. It was
one step at a time.
One step at a time. You know, it seems like a long time to get there, but I remember when I went to the mission field, it was very fulfilling for me. And you know what I found out? Because I was in a dating relationship during my high school and into my college years, that this relationship, although I really thought I loved this person, I did care deeply for him, but what I found out was that because I had these goals, I said, you know, it's only an extra year of my life. I finished my nursing degree, I've gotten my state boards done, I have my license, only one more year. And so I went off to the mission field, and I grew up a lot. There's a lot of emotional maturity that happens in these years of 18 to 20, 21, and then 20, 21 to 24, 25. And when we do that, I mean, that was a big growth spurt for me. And I saw life from a different perspective. And it was interesting when I came back to the United States and we got together, we connected again. It was like our lives were going in different directions. And just through those few years of education and pursuing a career, it had changed both of us.
Yeah, so if you don't really know what you want to do, because we run into many young people in the work that we do that they don't have direction, they don't have clarity, and they're really great at being able to be on their devices, and you know that takes a lot of time. I mean, the statistics are enormous on the amount of time people spend on our devices. But if you don't know the direction that you want to go, open that up. If you're a parent watching this presentation, do you know what your children's gifts and skills are? Have you had conversations? If you're a young person out there that's watching this, do you have direction? Do you know what you love to do? Because it's great to be able to get up every morning and do what you love to do. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's not work. It's what I love. And many young people come into their late teens, and instead of having the kind of goal that you had in life, that you were tracking towards, they don't really know what they're going to do, and they find themselves caught in a position that they really don't have the education that they needed. They really didn't know what they wanted to do, and now here they are. They're stuck, and it's not that this is wrong, but they're stuck with jobs that they hate. They didn't really want to do that, but they didn't prepare, and so this preparation can again be success for your single life.
Yes, have that direction and clarity and head for those goals that you have, and know that they are going to make you more, not just successful as a single person, but they're going to be beneficial in a relationship and in a marriage situation. If a young woman comes into a relationship and marriage and she already has a career and occupation, the guy has a career and occupation, while we already start life ahead of the game financially in maturing, because we're in the real world working with people, learning how to navigate through life and interpersonal relationships outside of just the personal relationship of boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, and I want to just say something to this point, that sometimes if we don't have clarity, or even if we do have direction, we can sometimes be pulled off unexpectedly because we get involved in a relationship that might be premature, or I'm thinking of one young lady that we talked to. She was so switched on with her goals and her direction in life. She had a plan out there. It's obvious that she had been praying.
Very talented.
She was very talented. She had been spending this time with God, had a real connection. And then this guy comes along, which unfortunately, she began to feel sorry for him. This is not a good basis for a relationship. And as she got to know him, she sort of found herself wanting to rescue him, be compassionate towards him. All that's good, but that is not the basis of a relationship. We don't want to be rescuing somebody. That's really not our job, especially in relationship. But we want to be doing what God wants us to do, focused on what we know will be addressing our talents. And I remember you had a conversation, quite a long conversation with her about that.
I said to her, someday if you continue in this path, you're going to wake up next to this guy in the morning and you're going to say, do I really love him? Because he had no motivation. He wasn't pursuing any type of career or occupation. He was happy to work at a McDonald's and flip burgers. And we need people who do that. But that's not a lifetime occupation that's sustainable to a family and to a relationship. Right. And it's not really a fulfilling one. It's a transition type of work. And so in that process, she couldn't quite understand. And I said, this is something you have to look ahead by faith and evaluate rather than just the emotions in the moment. And unfortunately, she went for the emotions in the moment and led her into this relationship. And that relationship, after several years and several children, ended very sadly in a divorce, separation and divorce. And now she's kind of going from place to place, trying to find settlement and being a single mom. And the guy's not responsible for the children. It's been a very sad situation.
And so as we share this, it is a sad story, and it's a story of people we know. But it doesn't have to be that way. So stay focused, get direction, because here again, it's for freedom. It's the real freedom. She lost her freedom because she lost her direction and her goals, and she ended up in a situation that she had no idea, even though you talked to her about it, she had no idea where this was going to really end. And then she was in a difficult position with children, no husband, trying to pick up the pieces. And so stay focused, get a direction for your life, get an education that aims you in that direction, and stay focused. Let that be part of your success as a single person.
It's only a couple of years of your life, 3 or 4 years to get that. It's not a lot of time invested, but it will make a huge difference in the time for the time in your future. The next area we want to talk about is developing friendships for both male and females, of both sexes. This is so important, just to have friends. So often, again, young people want to get into relationships, but they don't know how just to be a friend, how to communicate, how to be buddies with a guy or with a girl.
That's right. In Proverbs, it says in chapter 4 and verse 23, it says, keep your heart with all diligence. Heart keeping is a very important part of success as a single person, as you look towards developing a relationship, because if we don't keep our hearts, like that experience we just shared with you about the young lady, if we don't keep our heart, first of all, with God, so that we have clear direction and guidance, we're destined to create confusion in our minds and be swept into something that's emotionally driven and creates many problems.
So the reason why the wise men gave us this counsel is that because we have value, and so many young people don't see the value that they have. Each of us was created in the image of God, formed by God, and now we have value from Him. He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die for each of us individually. So if you recognize the value you have as a person, you will not go into relationships and sell yourself out cheap and get into situations that will cause pain and sorrow and scars for your future. So see the value that you have and recognize that because God made me, I can have the greatest fulfillment in life.
That's right. And learn how to be a friend to everyone. Not that we can be everyone's friend, But sometimes we get into these little cliques, we get into just who we think we're comfortable being with, and that's not going to really prepare us to recognize the kind of person that God wants to bring into our life that's a really good match for where we are in life.
So often we make those decisions based off of who's the most popular, who's the nicest looking guy, who's the most intelligent, what direction do they have? And when we focus there, we are missing the opportunity. There's so many other people who have value and who have things that they can offer us in friendships, and learn how to be a friend to everybody. That's one thing that was very important to me in my nursing career, whether I was talking with the doctors or I was talking to the housekeeper cleaning the unit. They were of the same. I respected each of them for who they were, what they were contributing to make this situation most successful.
Even in our own lives, as the Lord brought you into my life or brought us into each other's lives, I met my wife when she was a new employee at the hospital where I was working in radiology, and she had been hired on to be the nurse recruiter and was working in intensive care as well. And she came to our department in radiology to hand out the new employee handbook.
That's right.
Now, I couldn't tell you if my life depended on it, anything about that handbook, what color it was, what was on the cover page of it, but I can tell you this, that when I saw her walk through that door, I was attracted to her, and that's what I remember.
Well, that's good that you remembered. I was new to, like you said, new to this place and had to go to a lot of the auxiliary departments to get acquainted with the leadership there and the staff. And so in that process, I couldn't tell you, who worked where. I mean, I was just delivering these handbooks out. And I'm going to back up just a little bit because this is so important. When I talked about having goals and value and being friends with other people, it was because of my career that I was willing to step away from friends and family, friends in a relationship that wasn't a healthy one, and move halfway across the United States to take this job, this opportunity that came, and to start kind of my life on a next plane. And that's where I met you. And what was so interesting is that I kind of remembered seeing him, but several days later, he comes walking into my office, and I'm thinking, how did you get in here? Because there's a secretary at the door, and then there's a secretary right in front of my office that takes all my appointments and does my schedule, and nobody comes in the office unless it's a secretary or my boss without some kind of appointment or that I'm aware they're going to come in, and you just came walking right in and stood there in front of my desk.
I knew how to get past the secretaries there. I knew the secretaries, so that was easy.
I didn't know you knew them.
So the important thing was that for me, at this time in my experience, I had just really reconnected in a strong way with the Lord. I went through a difficult period of time in my single life where I was challenged with the thoughts of, did I really want to continue in, the relationship I had with God? And so I had just had a really reconversion experience, and so I was being very sensitive to God, did not want to deal with relationships the way that I had in the past. And so I really was cautiously approaching you and
Didn't seem that way necessarily, but...
and asking you out for a date. And you turned me down.
Well, I did turn you down, but here's how it really happened. So because I was new and only been in this job for about a week or 10 days, the director of nursing had asked me to come over to her home Saturday night. She was married with a family. She didn't want me to feel lonely in this big hospital, all these new people, without any friends or without knowing anybody at all, other than a few people in the nursing department personnel. And so she invited me over to their home to watch slides of their family vacation. And
really exciting.
Yeah, it was. But what was amazing about that, I thought, well, this is great. I'll get to know her better. I'll get to meet her family, and it'll give me something to do and build new friendships where I am in my work. So I accepted that offer. And when you came to me and said, would I like to go out with you Saturday night on a date? I said to you, I already have another commitment. I've made other plans, but I would take a rain check. Yeah. Meaning that you could ask me again at another time. Right. I would be interested.
I heard that, and it's true that she did say that, but my male pride was a bit offended, And so I thought, okay, so she doesn't want to go out with me. And so that was really a God thing.
Yeah, I think
It
so.
was a blessing because in that situation, I did not come back and ask her for another date for a long time, but instead we came to know each other through working as young adult leaders in our church, and it was a huge, 120 people, young adults, and we were co-leaders in that division, and we worked together, and that's where we really got to know each other.
Yeah, we got to see each
That
other.
was a blessing.
Yeah, for who we really were. I could see who he was, how he interacted with people. I can even remember when his parents came to visit him for the weekend, and they came to this young adult class, and I watched how he interacted with his mother. He was very friendly. He sat with his parents. I mean, here he is in his 20s, and he's sitting by his parents, making them feel a part of this youth group there. And that was quite impressive to me. So I was observing character qualities in him and many other young men and ladies, but particularly young men in that environment. And I started to develop deeper friendships with different people who I sensed had similar values and principles that I did and wanted to have a happy life.
So the point of this is that we need to be getting to know people so that we can really know them, not be pulled in our single life or unprepared part of life. It's to get pulled into a relationship that's over our heads, but to get to know each other, really evaluate character and understand who we're coming to know and who I might like to spend my life with.
That's right. And then see how they relate to other people. One of the other things that really impressed me about you, honey, was the fact that there was a guy who was not very educated. And he had kind of an entry-level job in the hospital, very important one, but not one that most people saw had much value, but it did. And you would speak as kindly to him, and you were his friend the same way you were with some of the doctors or the other people you interfaced with in your employment, or other people with higher positions in the hospital. And that really was impactful to me as well, because we need to develop friendships with all kinds of people. That's how we learn how people operate, and that's how we begin to navigate what kind of person I feel most comfortable at home with. What are those values? What are those things that draw our hearts together?
Because really, if we could put it in the ideal situation, you want to marry your best friend. So rather than letting your emotions or your affections or how good somebody looks get in the way of that, really get to know somebody in the deeper way so that you can connect with them and hopefully end up marrying your best friend like I did.
Yes, that was great. But, I thought about that because even picking girlfriends was important, because there was some girls in this class that they always were looking to position themselves in front of the guy they wanted to catch their attention. They were always kind of chumming up and being flirtatious and trying to kind of get in their space to be noticed. And I thought, I don't want to have to put myself forward to get noticed. I want to be noticed for who I am, because that's really the most important thing.
That's
and
very
so
good.
Those friends, while we were friends in that area, they weren't my closer friends. My closer girlfriends were ones who had similar natural restraint and wanted to be pursued by the guy. It may sound old-fashioned, but it is still the best way to do it. A woman
right.
loves to be pursued. So if you are a young woman and you are finding yourself wanting to pursue, to be noticed, to be in front of, to get attention, you're on the wrong course. You will get attention, but it won't be the kind of attention that's going to be having
That's
a
right.
lasting relationship.
So we just want to recap very quickly the 4 areas that we believe are very important to being successful, really successful in single life. So number 1 is to build and maintain a personal relationship with God.
Yes, and secondly, in addition to that, we want to master those skills of life. We want to know that we not only can do them, but we can do them comfortably and well, and that we can do them with a good heart, with a good spirit, not feeling like this is boring, this is a drudgery, I don't like this. I mean, just be able to do those things. And I appreciate what you said earlier. Part of that for girls is learning how to change a tire. Remember, you taught our girls, okay, you go change the tire. This is something you need to do. And how to paint a room, or, those kind of things, because all of those skills save us so much stress in future life because we don't have to pay somebody else to do those
Well,
things.
it's just kind of giving an overview to how life really operates. Not that you have to do it all. And
That's
I don't think
right.
our girls ever had to really change a tire in an emergency situation.
One time one did.
Oh, that's right. That one time, you're right. But just having a feel for this part of life. And then thirdly, the third area is that we really, if we don't know what we want to do, we need to be thinking about, if you're a young person in your early teens and you still don't know what you want to do in life, this needs to become a focus so that we can get on a path of direction so we can have success.
And if you're older, maybe you're 18 or 20, and you thought you knew what you wanted to do, but you started down that track and it's not really fulfilling, it's not really meeting your desire or what you feel like you have passion for, it is not too late to change. You can navigate that change, and it doesn't have to take a lot of years. Just those few years that you invest now make for your future to be happier and smoother.
And then lastly, number 4, to develop normal friendships. Our young people have friendships with young people that they grew up with, that they're very close to, even to this day. Even though our daughters are married to other men, they still have friendships of both sexes that they would consider their friends, that they can still associate with.
Mm-hmm. And those friends can be lifelong friends. I still have friends from my nursing school more than 45 years ago,
right.
People I worked with. We still communicate from time to time. We still have a connection. And so build friends, and this is so valuable to prepare for our future in a relationship.
That's right. So we hope that as we've shared these things with you, that you will find the truest and deepest success in your single life that will prepare you to be a blessing and to receive a blessing in every relationship of life.